Hi, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. Check it out. I got to give a big shout out to my show sponsor, my friends over at AVLX. I also have to give a big shout out to Charles Henry and Ace Young, the amazing performers and producers of the music behind the show, as well as the amazing people that make up the Hit Lab creative team, who are the producers of the show. Folks, I have a favor to ask. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, click that subscribe button to make sure you get alerted when new episodes are dropped. Thanks for tuning in.
The real success stories told by the people who live them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the hit streak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of The Hit Streak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and today I've got a real treat in the studio with me today in the Hit Lab. I have a living legend. I have a very successful athlete, a very successful businessman, a pioneer. As a matter of fact, if you've been to the University of Tennessee's Neyland Stadium at Gate 21, you might have taken a picture with his statue. In the building today, I've got none other than Mr. Lester McClain in the house. Thank you so much for being here today, Lester.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me.
Well, man, we got a lot to get into today, don't we?
Well, we'll just see how it works out.
That's right. Ain't that life,
That's
though?
life. Yes,
That's right. So, Lester, we have, so you played locally, went to high school at Antioch High School where you graduated, where you played football, where you went on to be the very first African-American football player at the University of Tennessee. So I know you probably get a lot of questions about that, and that's probably a hot topic that a lot of people want to hear about, and I'm sure that they could probably, and we're going to talk about it a little bit, but they could probably hear all about that if they just YouTubed you or looked up anywhere on the internet to find all kinds of cool stuff about that, right? That was a small window of your life versus maybe the last 40 years or so, right? When you've been out there killing it in the business world as a businessman.
Well, it was a lot different then, yes.
Yes, sir. So, well, first of all, my dad, who was just in here, he came in to say hello. You guys were high school teammates.
Right.
And I mentioned before when we were talking out front that growing up in my house, I tell my son about some of my teammates that I had, great people that were in my life at different stages. I share those with my kids and wife alike. And your name was brought up in our house all the time. For my whole life, it was brought up all the time for the impact that you made on my daddy. And so he mentioned a minute ago that when you showed up, just based off the way you dressed, they knew you were somebody. How did you dress in high school?
Well, at Antioch, I always wore kind of a sport coat and tie. And I think I was known for the tinted glasses. Not that it was shade. They were not shades. They were a light tint.
Okay.
And so that was a little bit different. I think no one at school wore tinted glasses and sport coats.
There you go. Well, so most high school kids don't do what everybody else isn't doing. They do what everybody else is doing, whether it's good or bad. So seriously, you're a teenager at this point. Like, what made you, it takes a certain mindset, a certain frame of mind to be different. What was it like? What was it? Do you know what really was the appeal to that to you back then? Like, what made you want to do that?
Interesting. My brother that's next to me, he's like, when I said next to me, he's, Smith is probably 13 years older. And he had attended Tennessee State. He's the first one in the family to ever go to college, as far as I know. And anyway, Smitty talked about so many of the students back then that dressed up to come to school because they were going to school to be professionals of some kind. It's interesting that was an agricultural school for the most part, but the dress up was part of the education and the professionalism that you were showing on your way. And I always wanted to do that. Had another brother, the oldest brother, next to the oldest brother, worked in Huntsville, Alabama. He had a construction company. They laid brick, bricked a lot of houses down there. And so I had a chance I would always go work with them in summer, or anytime we were not in school, I would go work. So all the money I would make, I'd save money and be able to buy my own clothes and buy my own everything, because my parents didn't have a lot of money to do anything with. And so if you wanted certain things, you had to go out and do that hustle thing of saving your money. And so I started buying those kinds of things and getting ready for school. And I think I wore more sport coats at Antioch than I did any other time. By that time, I had that kind of wardrobe. It didn't exist before.
That's right. So that's the first crack of the bat right there. We added a hit to the hit streak, talking about how you had mentioned that you were getting ready to learn. You were getting in the right frame of mind. The reason you went to school wasn't because somebody told you had to. You went there to get something out of it. Right. You went there to accomplish something out of it, and you took pride in your uniform, right?
Absolutely.
To be able to do that. So, excuse me, I feel the same way. People ask me all the time, like every single thing that I wear, everything about me when I'm getting dressed has a purpose, whether it be to stand out or it does something for me to get me in the right frame of mind to go out and accomplish what in the heck it is I got to accomplish that day.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, well, Dad talked about that a lot, how I've heard that Lester wore a suit and tie to high school, and you were the only one that did that. Is that true, too, that nobody else really did that?
I don't recall anyone other than teachers, maybe.
There you go. Did you get mistaken for a teacher a lot?
No, I didn't get mistaken for the teacher. No, not that. But we did have really some cool teachers that was, oh my God, I just lost his name. Had his name. I'm not going to even try to do that one. But we had a young teacher that had gone to Belmont, Steve Hewlett.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I've heard the name.
Steve had run for public office at one time.
That's it.
Yeah. And he was our speech teacher.
Okay.
And one of my number one things I wanted to do when I went to Antioch was to take a speech class, and that's where I met him.
Okay.
What's so crazy is that I wanted to take a speech class. I'm a natural stutterer, a serious stutterer.
Okay.
And was determined to take the speech class because I felt like I was going to have to speak for the rest of my life to different things because I was going to be successful.
There's another one. You know what I mean? So that cord might drive you crazy. You can just throw it over your shoulder if you need to. You ain't going to hurt nothing. Well, man, that's so that's the first person that I've ever heard say, I was looking forward to speech class. You know what I mean? But you knew what you were there to get out. I took speech class too. Didn't get anything out of it. You can probably tell by listening to me speak today. I went because somebody told me I had to. Okay. Not because of what I could get out of it. That was the old me, but that didn't know what I understand now, right? So, and we're always I'm telling my children about that as well. That like, man, if there's an opportunity to get something out of what you're doing, but it's up to you to get it. Right. You got to get it. So at Antioch, you guys, another couple names that I heard were you guys football coaches that you had at Antioch back then.
Coach Hayes.
Yep, Coach Hayes. Coach Dunn was another name I heard a lot about.
Right.
You mentioned before off camera that those guys were studs. Yep. What was some of the stuff that my dad talks about those guys and a lot of the life lessons that he was able to get from them as he looked at them as mentors, not just coaches, but as mentors. What were some of the way that those guys impacted you?
Well, I thought it was significant that I came to Antioch. Now, I'm a senior. Everyone has been there for their time period. And in some cases, in Middle Tennessee, you didn't have spring practice but you did have kids that were on your team that you watched mature and had places for them and saw your future, what you would have the following year.
Right.
Then they have a stranger to walk in onto to the football field thinking that they should play somewhere on the team and not familiar with anything at all that's going on, and to think that you would have success in that under those circumstances was, well, this is what I thought about when I look back on it. I think, to think that I was going to have success and walking in that situation is pretty difficult because you're not familiar with anything. I had no idea what kind of offense they ran or defense. I guess it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, the guys pretty soon, they adjusted to me and took me in as a member of the team. And I was, Bruce Culberson. Did you ever know Bruce Culberson?
I didn't know him. He didn't. It's the guys I know the most are the ones that still go have lunch on Fridays.
Okay.
They get together and do that still. But I've heard the name, of course. But I don't know if I ever met him.
Right. Bruce was an underclassman. When I say underclass, he was not a senior. And Bruce was a very talented young man. But had a lot of speed, a lot of things. I remember him being around during those early days when Mr. Garrett, Dr. Garrett, was running us, getting us ready for practice sessions. And you notice that Bruce was the guy that was always in front, close to the front. Mm-hmm. So he was there, and he was one that you ran full speed every time, and you knew he was going to run full speed every time.
Yep.
And then he had his little brother that was there on the sideline watching everything. I used to make his little brother throw me the ball on the sideline while the coaches were talking, just to make sure I got my hands straightened out and I could catch the ball well. Because I didn't practice playing football.
Right.
I didn't catch the ball with anybody. I just knew that I could catch the ball if I got to play regularly.
Wow.
And just so the kid used to throw the ball to me. So I did attend. I hate to say this. I did attend Bruce's funeral and saw the little brother. He's a grown man at this time, and I told him thank him for all the balls he threw to me because he made a difference in my life. Just doing those little things. Yes,
that's awesome. So, after Antioch, you were recruited to play football at the University of Tennessee,
right.
The Big Orange, right? And in Nashville, that's we have Vanderbilt here, but there's a whole lot of people that bleed that orange here. You know what I mean? So
right.
It's a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's a big deal to be able to play at the University of Tennessee. So you go there, and So this is a question that I was really excited to ask you. So, are you known more for the culture impact that you made, or the impact you made on the program? And that's a dumb question. Most people are like, well, that's a dumb question, Nick. Of course, you made the culture thing, but you were a great player, right? So, do you feel is it overshadowed your playing career at all? Do you think?
No. Older I get, rather than getting better, I realize every year the kids get better.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you realize just how great they are.
Yes.
And so, I keep that part in perspective. And I also realize that, I wasn't the greatest player in the world. My going to Tennessee had a lot to do with Bill Garrett promoting me and Tennessee needing a roommate for Albert Davis.
Okay.
And
so who was Albert Davis?
Albert Davis was probably the greatest football player we had out of the state of Tennessee up to that time. He was to Tennessee football what Herschel Walker was to Georgia football.
Okay.
He was a stud.
Okay.
Running back. And Tennessee was highly recruiting him. And he's from Alcoa, and Alcoa has always had powerful football. Alcoa, Maryville, that spot is full of the football hub. And he was just a stud that Tennessee was going to sign. But to do so at that time when you were signing, the newness, it's a new world where you're going to sign a black player,
Right.
you needed to give him a roommate.
Okay.
Okay, that was
Makes sense. Makes sense.
It makes sense, but then it really doesn't.
Sure.
But but it
Sure.
did. It did. So it needed a roommate, and
But to be alone, I couldn't
Yeah.
imagine. I can't imagine what it'd be like to be alone in a situation like that when not everybody's going to treat you like they should.
yeah, well, that's part of the experience, and
Yeah.
part of the change that goes with the change.
Yes, sir.
But I got recruited mainly because of Albert.
Okay.
When they got everyone that they thought was going to come to be Albert's roommate, didn't come. And by the time we got to the spring game, beginning of May, I got a great call from Bill Garrett telling me that, you need to go to the spring game, and you're being invited by Tennessee to the spring game.
Wow.
And that he said, "We're going to pull this off, Lester. We're going to pull this off." And I thought, well, how wonderful. So I got a chance to meet Albert Davis and went to the spring game and signed the following week
Wow.
to go to Tennessee. And for whatever reason, about 30 days later, whatever it was that all was involved, Albert did not come.
Okay.
He had signed first, and I
Yep.
signed because,
Yep.
I got the opportunity to sign because Albert had.
Sure.
Then Albert decided he wasn't coming after
Okay.
he had signed his scholarship. He had 40 scholarships at that time.
Good Lord.
And Albert signed the 39th one, and I signed the 40th one, but he never came. So we had you had that experience of, well, what's it like when you only have one?
That's right. That's right.
So that was so that was where the experience of it all began, and I think it was healthy for everyone.
Sure.
That experience was. Mm-hmm.
So, I get a lot of great feedback from folks that tune in,
Mm-hmm.
and I love when people let me know, hey man, you did great with this. Man, I wish we'd have heard a little bit more from that person on this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's gonna say when you get a guy like Lester, and we could have spent the whole time talking about your experience. And all that's going on in the culture and everything. But one of the things that we focus on this show is it's a lot geared at young business owners, entrepreneurs, and stuff like that. So we're going to talk, I'm just kind of letting everybody know ahead of time that we got to get into some serious business stuff here in just a little bit. But the background and how, being a business owner is one of the most difficult things in the world that you can do, is own a business,
Mm-hmm.
and especially when it comes to making money.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a certain type of toughness, takes a certain type of attitude or mindset, and more importantly, it takes a certain amount of ability to be able to get up after life knocks you down over and over and over repeatedly. Mm-hmm. And every time you get up stronger, mm-hmm. right, and smarter. So I would be a fool to say that those experiences getting you to University of Tennessee and then being there, because look, they recruited you for one reason based on what you're telling me, but you stayed. Mm-hmm. So obviously you earned your spot.
Right.
You earned your spot.
Right.
And we'll talk about your playing career there in just a moment. But that's one of the things I really want to hear and let the folks know is how you were able to take obviously you had a certain attitude yourself where you wore the suits to school. You had when you dress different than everybody else, you think differently. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
True. Mm-hmm.
So when you were able to take that to a top program in college sports, and then even you had some affiliations with the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, was it with Chicago?
In Chicago, briefly. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the university, it worked out for everybody, University of Tennessee and everybody combined, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. I got a couple numbers on here. Tell me if these are correct. All right. During your 3 seasons at UT, because you couldn't play as a freshman back then, right? Could not play as a freshman. You caught 70 passes for 1,003 yards and 10 touchdowns. You also rushed 30 times for 123 yards and two touchdowns, and you returned 8 kickoffs for 168 yards. Does that sound pretty close?
I assume that's correct.
So, well, man, that's incredible. What was it like playing at Neyland Stadium, first of all?
Oh, it was wonderful. I guess during that time we didn't have 100,000 people, but it was like in 70,000 number, and that's it's a wonderful thing to walk out on the field when most of them are pulling for you.
Oh wow, yeah, man, that's a long way from Blue Hole Road.
Oh, very long way, yes.
Where a packed house might be like 300-400 folks or something like that. I don't know what were the crowds like at Antioch back then. I guess that was the biggest game in town.
Yeah, they had. It's probably
Might have pushed 1,000, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, it could have. We've had a couple of big games. I think the Donaldson game was big, and maybe Overton.
Yep.
Yeah, so they could have pushed 1,000, well over 1,000 in those games.
But there's got to be I know the first time I ever played in front of like 10,000 people, it's a different, the air feels different. The way the ball carries is different when you're surrounded by all that. It's just a totally different place.
That's exactly right.
So, that had to be quite the rush to do that. And you got to do that for 3 seasons.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And you graduated from University of Tennessee, is that correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. You were so you mentioned the Chicago a short stint with the Chicago Bears. Tell me a little bit about that. So, because I had a short stint in professional baseball as well, we have that in common.
Yeah, it was a short stint, but a wonderful experience. And I want to be politically correct when I say this, in that that experience made me appreciate the fact that I knew I could do something else other than play football.
Okay.
And I knew that even if it didn't work out, it really didn't matter if I never did it. But the experience of going to a training camp was more important than playing, really.
That's right.
Seeing it happen.
That's right.
And then knowing that you can change from all of that to another world, believing you can do that.
That's right.
And be successful at it.
We were, a lot of folks, we talk a lot about reinventing yourself, and every time it has to be better than the time before. And I was telling you before, and I've mentioned this before on the show a few times, that like when I had played the last time, it took me a while to change who I was to myself. I'd spent my whole life, 20-something years, where I was known as the baseball player. And then all of a sudden, I wasn't a baseball player.
Right.
I was only a baseball player to myself.
Right.
And I looked in the mirror and saw the way that I dressed was still a baseball player. What time of day I woke up and what time I went to bed and was still a baseball player. All the things that the weight training and the conditioning and all the things that I used to train for were no longer relevant. If I did them moving forward, it was because they were a hobby, not for a living. Right. So, one day, you realized your life in football was over. How old were you when that happened? Do you know?
I was 21 years old. Going
21
on
years
22. 20, I was going to be 22. That's it. Well, by then I was probably about to turn 22.
Okay.
In September, and I knew that other side of the world that I wanted to address was coming.
That's right.
Even though I don't think I was really prepared for it, but I was prepared to be prepared for it. And so that was different. I think, again, the other thing was that, and this is going to sound a little bit crazy, Nick, in that playing football was very important,
Mm-hmm.
but to only be known as a football player wasn't what I wanted to be known as.
Wow, that's awesome.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, to be the first African American to be there was one thing, but to just be a football player
Mm-hmm.
and not take the challenge of the world, then it's kind of like, I think that would make you a failure.
Yes, sir.
And it was, if just being football was just the only thing that was important, I could have coached.
Sure.
But I didn't want to be looked at or thought of as one who was just strictly a football player.
Man, that's so good. I when I first got out of the game, I did some coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little business where I was training athletes and all those things. And like, it never was, I know exactly what you're saying, because it never was just me.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't, something was missing. I knew that this wasn't how I'm going to write what I'm going to be remembered for. I knew that.
Right.
I knew that. And I had to figure out how to use and leverage all my experiences up to that point, and almost pivot them in the new direction that I was going to go. It's like, gosh, I know people that were the top of their class that, like, look, you get good grades and they give you a good report card, but that don't mean you know how to make money.
Right.
There's no payroll in that.
That's right.
And there's people that I know that were literally the top of their class that ain't the top of the income bracket.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's a lot of fools out there that are the top of the income bracket.
Right.
Because they know how to make some money.
That's exactly right.
What was the how? So you were, gosh. Culturally, there was probably a lot of people that loved you. There was probably a lot of people that hated you, right? But that's any athlete.
Yeah.
That's any performer of any kind to a certain degree. What were some of the similarities that you used? Because I want to preface it with this. My dad always told me, like, what made you cool and unique is none of that stuff defined you. You were you. That was it. You were true to yourself. You were comfortable with that person, and you knew what you believed in. You knew what you stood for, and that was it.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like that was the case of coming out of the kind of household, that I came out of. And the brother that I worked for, I think this is very important. My next to oldest brother, Andrew, I'd worked for him every summer, and he was like a father, not like a brother. Like the car that Mickey said that I was driving, well, my brother bought that car for me.
Oh, wow.
And so I always had a car because he was kind of like, I was like his, kind of like a son to him to some degree, or the little brother that his dreams of how he thought it should be.
That's awesome.
I got to live that. But I remember being in Huntsville, Alabama one summer, and I'm telling him, Andrew, I know how to do everything on your job. I know how to make it go faster when I'm here. I said, I have got to learn how to lay brick like you. And it was the first time he really hurt my feelings. He told me that I wasn't going to do that, and he wasn't going to let me do it.
Okay.
And this very day, I can't lay a brick. I know good brickwork.
There you go.
I know how it's supposed to be done. I know how to do the jobs. But he didn't ever let me get the skill because he said I wouldn't go to school.
Oh, wow.
And I thought that was big.
Absolutely.
Especially when I went to work in the summer, whenever, I made the job a lot more money.
Sure.
I knew that. And but then he told me I couldn't lay brick.
Wow. How cool is that?
And that's cool. Yeah.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Well, it's some people call that a standard. You know what I mean? But like, it doesn't mean you were too good for it. It means that wasn't going to help you get where you needed to go.
Well, he felt like he was like 23 years older than me.
Okay.
His brother was. And he felt like there's a change that needs to be done in that family.
Yes, sir.
And that change has to I'm the last one, so it was going to start with me because it couldn't start with anyone else afterwards in that, in our immediate family. So that was important to him.
Yes.
And to go on and do something else. He didn't even know about football. He didn't care about football.
Right.
But, they were my number one supporters.
Sure.
As a result of playing football. But they expected something more of me.
Right. Wow. That's so good. That's so good. My daddy, where they were in high school, were very. I think middle class would be a compliment. Dale's off camera over here. I think middle class was not where he had established yet. They came from basically nothing. And when I tell my son a lot. My daddy was the first one to graduate from college, and him and my mother, they were the first into they got the middle class together, and then that was a huge step up from the previous generation. So keeping things going, it means that I've got to continue to have the growth in the family, and my son, he's going to have to be a better generation than I am, right. So and you keep good going that way, and you keep the growth happening. So that's a unbelievably profound lesson to have. Somebody that understood that and was able to help you with that in the beginning, because that's cool, man. That is very cool, very cool. So after we have, first of all, let me tell. So you've been married 50 years.
Yes,
been married 50 years.
We'll be in June.
We'll be in June, and you have 2 sons and a daughter. Now check this out, folks. All right, now this is where it gets really neat. So he's got 2 sons and a daughter. One son's a surgeon, one son's a radiologist, and the other one's an attorney. Are you proud or what?
Oh, I'm very proud. Very proud.
Well, that's incredible. So I'm raising. I've got a 12-year-old and a 9-month-old daughter. I got a 12-year-old son, 9-month-old daughter, and you want them to dream big, and chase those dreams, and I was able to take the dreams of wanting to be a professional athlete, and I was able to find passion in something else where I could be driven to want to have the growth. And when I realized that maybe the big leagues wasn't where the Lord put me to be, it was somewhere else. I had to figure that out. And then I didn't know, I had a huge image crisis after an athlete, and there was some really my darkest times were right after baseball. And but it was all a part of the journey to figure out why the Lord put Nick Hyder here, right? So let's talk a little bit about life after football, because you mentioned before, you said that there was some hard times after football, and then you mentioned a key phrase that I love. You called something a door opener. Right, you called something door opener. I had a door opener too. A man offered me a job at U.S. Health Advisors, and that was my door opener. Right. So, talk to me about some hard times after football, and how you got moving in the forward direction that led you to who you are today.
Well, one of the things that after football, when I decided, what am I going to do, I knew that I wanted to be a salesman. I knew that much.
Why sales? Because, Lester, most people that I meet, I hire salespeople all the time. I'm a sales guy. There's no revenue without sales.
Right.
And my kid's a salesman too. When he asked for ice cream last night,
right,
we're all salesmen.
Right.
But most people, sales has a bad reputation around the place. It's like people will be like, he sounds like a salesman. Like that's a bad thing.
Right.
So why sales?
Well, a couple of things. I wanted to get paid for what I do.
Okay.
Rather than being told how much I would be paid. I think that's a big difference.
So we could talk for hours just about that. People don't understand that.
Right. That was one thing. The other thing is that I had the country boy mentality, and that I didn't want to be locked up in a building all day. So I had to get out. Salesman get out.
Salesman got to go talk to people.
Yeah, he gets out, and you gone all day long.
Yes, sir.
And you just, you bring back the applications or the policies or whatever it is that you're selling at the end of the day. So that was very attractive to me. You get a little bit of freedom. I call that freedom.
It is freedom.
When you can get up and go and you set your own schedule and you set a lot of appointments and you go see people. And that you make a good world. I mean, that's a pretty good life. I like that.
Yes, sir.
And that was what I felt like I wanted, even though I had never done it, had never sold anything before. But I felt like that was what I wanted to do, and that was the first step toward it. And I eventually got, I think I had the first quick sell job I had was to sell Encyclopedia Britannica. That was a brief thing. That was a real experience. And the stories behind that one I will not go into today. But
that was like the encyclopedia salesmen were like the guys that had sold all the Tupperware. The encyclopedias came next.
I mean, that's a tough road to hold. Was that?
Yes, sir.
But then I went from there, and I ended up getting hired from Blue Cross Blue Shield to sell group insurance.
Okay.
So I sold group insurance in downtown Knoxville and East Knoxville, so I had a downtown territory. So I had a chance to go and knock on a lot of doors every day.
It's awesome.
And, learn to sell.
Yes, sir.
I was learning to sell. And I felt like I had potential for selling to go at a very high level. But I started there in the group sales, and I wanted to go where I could learn more about how to sell.
Okay. So you were seeking knowledge.
Seeking the knowledge of sales. So I eventually went from, didn't stay at Blue Cross as long as I probably could have, should have. But after about a couple of years, I went to Xerox Corporation, mainly because they had an outstanding training program in sales training program. So I wanted to get all the sales training because I felt like I could be a professional salesman.
There you go.
After if I went to Xerox. So that happened. I went there, worked there 2 or 3 years, and, things were going extremely well. And the craziest thing of all, but was very important to do, and it was nowhere on the radar, but I got asked by the mayor of Knoxville to come and work as his administrative assistant.
Okay.
Worked for him for around a year, and it was and that year, it was his 4th year, an election year.
Okay.
I'd never seen an election that I'd been involved in it. None of that. Hadn't seen any of that. But he also told me, he said, I can't tell you of a lot of things that this experience is going to give you as compared to your selling. Sales is going to be the best thing you'll ever do. He said, but you're going to learn things here about people.
There you go.
That you would never know in your lifetime, but you'll have an understanding that will go with you forever and can add to your success. I think that was the selling point from him.
Wow.
For me to change from after Xerox to go do that. So I did have that year of experience working, for the city, seeing the political machine work, or seeing all the things that took place, and the people, all the things that, how it works. Because I never seen any of that. I'm a country boy from Antioch.
That's right. That's right.
Pinhook Road, Antioch, not knowing anything. And that was a wonderful experience. And then, but at the same time after that, I ended up selling real estate because the mayor had his partner had a real estate agency there, and they were developers. The mayor's family were builders, developers, and all those things, and that put me into an area that I was comfortable with, and I was happy to do that.
That's right.
Until the interest rates got so high. And I realized you couldn't sell real estate with 18% interest rates. That happened too.
Oh, goodness.
But it did prepare me for everything was an experience that I needed to have.
There you go.
So it got me to the next move was to get me to the insurance agency that I needed to get to. I needed a vehicle that I could really operate from and sell to do the things I wanted to do.
There you go.
And make the difference in the family. And so that time came.
True or false, Mr. Lester? I say this a lot when I'm interviewing folks that might be our next team member to open their own agency. I tell them all, nobody stands up on career day in the fourth grade and big and proud and pokes their chest out and says, when I grow up, I'm going to be an insurance agent.
Right.
Nobody says that. Nobody.
Yeah.
Tom Brady actually said there's a documentary on him. There's a bunch of documentaries on him, but I'm pretty sure it was Inside the Arena, or the Man in the Arena one that just came out, where he was talking about the fourth round goes. He didn't get drafted. The fifth round, he looked at his dad and he said, he's like, I'm starting to get freaked out. I thought I was going to have to go sell insurance. That was what Tom Brady said that. And nobody grows up to do what we do, yet the insurance industry has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet right now. Yet nobody stands up and says they want to be in insurance. It's kind of weird. It's almost like you got to go out and chase your dreams, and when you have nothing left, that's when you become an insurance agent. At least that was what it was for me, because I started with rock bottom. But we both have insurance in common, right? And you were with a great company for a long time called State Farm that everybody's familiar with, right?
Right.
Did you ever meet Jake in his khakis? I got to ask that.
Jake is a little young.
He's a little young?
Yes.
So, tell the folks what you did. So you were an agency owner with State Farm for a while.
Right. I started a scratch agency in Knoxville.
Okay.
And I guess that was in 83, I believe.
Okay.
And stayed there until right at 1990. Moved back to Nashville and was an agency manager for State Farm in Nashville. And a state agency manager about 5 years and went back to agency.
Okay.
And that's my life in the insurance. Is that did that for about 30-something years.
That's a career, man.
Right, and so now I just kind of just have fun, taking care of the things that State Farm afforded me.
Yes, sir. Well, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're all looking for, is an outlet, right? An outlet where we can be just have the opportunity to be the best versions of ourselves, have the opportunity to create the life that we believe we're here to create, an opportunity to give our families the life that we feel they deserve. Mine deserves a great life for putting up with me.
I understand.
So I'm gonna be working till the day I die, probably, to give them the life they deserve. No, man. In all seriousness, so I know you've done some work in real estate. We also have that in common. But there were in you mentioned that, like, all the experiences that you had kind of were necessary to get you, so that when you got your opportunity, you were able to capitalize on that. Tom Brady says, he was there and he was backing up Drew Bledsoe, who was the first first $100 million contract in the history of NFL, and that's who Tom Brady's backing up. So, like, the odds of him getting in are slim to none. But even Drew Bledsoe said that Brady was always so in tune and like in every practice and soaked up every single moment, because when he did get his time, when he did get his moment to shine, he did. He did. And it sounds like that's something that kind of like what you're saying right now is, you knew when you were doing in politics or doing any of those other things that, like, you knew that wasn't where you were going to end up, but you knew it was necessary. You were able to learn,
right,
and take those experiences, just like you probably learned a lot. You probably used a lot of your time in football and the things that you learned in insurance, because insurance ain't easy, man.
No, it's not.
The longer the customer stays happy, the more money you make. So it's not like you're getting all your money up front.
Right. Exactly right.
It takes quite a bit of time to build the book of business that gives you the income that you need, right?
Right.
So,
exactly.
Tell me a little bit about that, about your journey getting started, because for me, there was dozens of times where I wanted to take my head and just crash it through a wall. I was so frustrated with how hard it was to get it to start and be successful in insurance. It was because I realized I had a marketing problem. I wasn't getting in front of enough people.
Right.
So what was your experience like when you started?
Well, getting that opportunity to be a State Farm agent, I'll never forget Dan Brooks gave me that opportunity, and he gave me a lot of books that I had to read and had to read their philosophy at that time, the old State Farm philosophy. And he talked to us about the books referred to building. You have to build your clientele by knowing their X dates. Mm-hmm. And
yes, X dates.
Yeah, the X dates.
So what is an X date?
X date is no more than every property casualty policy has an expiration date.
There it is, expiration date.
Yeah.
That's right.
If it's an automobile, your X date is usually every 6 months.
Yes, sir.
It's only a 6-month policy.
Okay.
If it's a homeowners, or we call them fire policies, they usually last a year, and they renew. Well, people normally don't look to change either one unless it's at the X date.
Right.
So it's important to know everybody's X date, and if you're going to call everyone or pursue them, it's good to pursue them at a time that the X date is coming. And so that was the first challenge that I had, was to create a system of X dates so that would put me into the insurance game. And I was just fortunate enough. All the bad things about the interest rates in the real estate and all these things forced me into working for the property assessor's office doing a reappraisal. And I got to see how it was arranged, how it was organized, and it was perfect for the insurance X-date business.
That's right, baby, dude. So many folks would be like, that was just a crappy job I didn't like, and they wouldn't take any of that experience and move it forward. Like, you were literally mining data. Right? Before people did that. You mentioned before, you said index card.
Right. That's right.
Right. So tell the folks how you used it. So now it would be it'd be a form fill, and they'd put all their information in electronically, and and you could save it and mark it to that. We do that all the time, right? But you were doing it
before those things.
That's right.
Yeah. It's just a matter of going through. Working for the property assessor's office, you get to see every property in the city. And so what I wanted to know was, I wanted to be in subdivisions. So I knew how to find all the subdivisions, and every name in those subdivisions, whoever's name was on those properties, it told their name, the address, and the day they purchased the property.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Now from there, that purchase date is probably the X date of the homeowner's insurance. Most of the time, it's going to be that. And so I thought that was the most important thing, because that's the one that drives the business anyway.
Absolutely.
Because where there's a home, they called it, my guy said, where there's a fire, which if the homeowners is a fire policy, he said, where there's a fire, it will spread.
Yes.
So you try to make sure that you spread the fire insurance about.
That's right.
Because you could find everything that you wanted in a household. It was always there. So we just built we built a filing system of X-date cards back in those days of all those names, and put them in, not in alphabetical order, but put it based on the month and the day of the month.
Wow.
So that we could call them. But in doing that, the great thing about that time versus today and doing the same thing is hard to do today.
Yes, sir.
For a couple of reasons. I had like what looked like a shoebox. I probably had 25 to 30 of them full of those cards. And I put them in alphabetical order, go through the crisscross directories.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if they still use those things or not. They still have crisscross directories?
Well,
we can find that. Well, everybody had a phone number.
Yeah.
It wasn't everybody had a cell.
sure.
Everybody had a phone number.
That's right.
And there were phone numbers that were unlisted. But most everyone had a phone.
Yes, sir.
So you could put a phone number on almost every card. And so out of 26 to 30 boxes you had of all these cards, you may had 4 or 5 boxes that you couldn't get a phone number for.
Okay.
Okay? Of course, those are the ones that if you're going to market to them, you have to pay money by postage.
That's right. You had to mark it to the mailbox.
Right. That's right.
That's right.
So, but once you found those phone numbers in those, we put them on a system and we called them 60 days prior to that renewal date, prior to the X date, and set appointments. And most of them didn't give us appointments.
Sure.
But you'd be surprised that when we thanked them for talking to us, and then we asked them for their car renewal date, we ended up with tons of car renewal dates every single day in our file. So it's just a matter of calling those people back again on the car renewal dates.
That's right.
And so before you know it, you got,
incredible.
It becomes an incredible cycle
Absolutely.
of business that grows and grows, and then they refer to you, and
Absolutely.
it becomes another ball game.
It's like, man, he just knew exacly when I needed him, and that's
exactly right.
You created a great experience that they could tell other folks about. We use a lot of food references here when we talk about marketing, because the food industry is very competitive and they're really good at it. But imagine if the funeral home knew when all of our expiration dates were, and they could say 60 days from now.
Right.
Imagine how great they would be at their job. That's right. And we would all do it. Yeah. Well, man, that's fantastic, because, anybody in your space could have did that, and they weren't. You figured out that's called innovation, baby. That's called innovation, right? So, and innovation and index cards are not two things that are lumped together anymore. But it was the process. Right. You created a process that you could scale, replicate, and more importantly, create a better customer experience for the customer.
Right. Exactly.
And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Because that's why I'm in business, is to help people. It's to help people. And if we don't help anybody today, I don't think we should get paid.
Right.
You know what I mean? Anybody can show up.
That's right.
Anybody can show up. So, well, man, that's really cool. So you guys knew what key metrics you were looking for, and you turned that into a freaking good business.
Right.
That's incredible. All right, let's see here. So tell me about the statue. That's, I'm a big Rocky fan. You know what I'm saying? Rocky's got a statue, and it's famous. What about your statue? Tell me about your statue. When did that happen?
Well, it happened last fall, before the day of the first game.
Last fall, so it's recent.
Right.
Wow.
It was introduced. Actually, I must give that credit to Danny White and the athletic director at UT today.
Okay.
He had approached me during the SEC tournament here in Nashville last year.
Okay.
About that. And he wanted to acknowledge me, Jackie Walker, Conrich Holloway, and T. Martin as being, I guess, trailblazers.
Absolutely.
In the SEC type of thing, in that I came and was considered the first African American to play, but wasn't the first.
Sure.
I was the first to play and stay.
Okay.
That's a little different. Then
it is, but it's the same, because the staying power is everything, and that's what you endured during that time.
Right. Then you had Conrich came 4 years later.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 2 years later came Jackie Walker.
Okay.
Jackie was a year after me. I'm sorry, he was the next year.
Okay.
And Jackie, of course, he wasn't the first, but he was the first All-American in the SEC.
Okay.
As a linebacker. He became All-American as a sophomore, by the way. He was fantastic, good football player. And then Conrich Holloway, he was 4 years, there was 4 years between me and Conrich. And Conrich became the first black athlete to be quarterback in the SEC.
Wow.
Then T. Martin came, and he was the first black guy to be quarterback and win a national championship.
That's right.
So they wanted those 4 statues out to kind of show the history of Tennessee and the black athlete.
Absolutely.
And the role that's been played, and that's important because that's not very well known.
Right.
It was never publicized. I had, it's not something that would happen today, but during my career, maybe once, could have been twice in the SEC that I even saw another black player.
Absolutely.
On the football team.
That's right.
Yeah. So it was a different ball game, different time.
Sure.
So all of that was just to kind of show the history in a nutshell of Tennessee. Hopefully it's a great recruiting tool.
That's up to them. It absolutely is.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we'll just see. But to be honored was special.
Well, it's such a cool thing, man. It's and it's such a cool looking. It's a cool statue, isn't it? Isn't it cool? Like, can you believe that? Did you ever imagine a statue like that of yourself?
I never imagined a statue. Period.
It's unbelievable.
Imagine, yeah.
What a blessing, man. Well, it's so. I want everybody to understand. Like, the first time. All right, so it was my second professional game ever. It was on the road. Mm-hmm. This is in 2003. And we're at a stadium in St. Louis that couldn't have had. I actually took my son there when we were in St. Louis last year to show him because it's Gateway Stadium in St. Louis, and it's a beautiful stadium. It only seats like maybe 5,000-6,000 people. I mean, it's not big, but it was a unique place because that was the first place I got released, and I was released on the road. And funny story, I won't spend too much time on it, but it was like literally I'd only been with the team for like 2 weeks, and that was the only time I got released. They released me on the road. I still had all my stuff, and rather than they were on like a 14-day road trip, so rather than ride the bus with the team I just got fired from, I called my pop. It was like 11 o'clock at night to come get me, and I was sitting outside in the parking lot in the dark, pitch black dark, for 4.5 hours while I waited on Dad to come pick me up in the middle of the night and bring me home.
To drive to St. Louis?
Yes, he did. I called him up, and he said, "Man, how was it?" And I was like, "Well, I just got released." And he said, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, man, you think you can come get me?" So it was the loneliest 4 hours of my life. I watched the bus leave, and like I'm sitting in this lit parking lot, so it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. Well, after they finished cleaning up the stadium, everything just went black, and it was just me by the side of the interstate in a parking lot in St. Louis for hours waiting on Dad to come get me. No cell phone, or not. The cell phones weren't what they were then. It was a little flip one. You couldn't surf the internet. It was just me and my lonesome sitting out there for a long time. But we went there, and I was able to show my son that place. But that was where my dad and my girlfriend at the time had come to watch me play. So it was like my second game was my first start, and they were there. And the reason I'm saying all this is because like 5,000 people, because I was the rookie. If I struck out, the whole stadium won a beer, right? So as soon as I came up to bat, the most awfulest things that I could imagine at that time was being screamed at me from the stands. And of course, my dad's giggling.
Right.
My girlfriend thought it was the worst thing ever. Lester, you had 70,000 people on top of you screaming God knows what.
Let's go back to first game ever to play at Tennessee. We played Georgia in '68, national TV, big game. I'm hoping that I get to play, okay? And, of course, I thought I would. didn't know. Didn't start, so you didn't know. And I remember entering the game for the first time, late, maybe second quarter.
Okay.
I don't recall exactly when, so I can't say that. And not that you pay a lot of attention, but it's like I got a standing ovation.
Really?
It's I still think I did, unless I got a standing ovation.
That's fantastic.
People applauded me entering the
That's
game.
wonderful.
And I mean,
That's amazing.
I mean, just think what that means.
Absolutely.
I hadn't done anything, never done anything. I mean, hadn't played at all.
Right.
But I had the what's interesting. I had the security of the quarterback.
Okay.
Bubba White.
Okay.
And so I'm going to even pull for Cincinnati in the Super Bowl this year because of Bubba White's brother was the coach the last time they went to the Super Bowl.
I'll be dang.
Yeah. Okay. Sam White. Okay. All right. Well, ended up before the game. We ended up being behind and down by 8 points with time running out in the game. And I'll never forget, I was in the game during the last drive that we had.
Okay.
And fourth down and extremely long, and we're losing. And Bubba threw the fourth down ball to me. We got a first down.
That's awesome.
And kept the drive alive to the point that we scored as the game was ending, got a 2-point play, and tied the game.
Wow.
And, ended up being a tie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was an interesting way to start life. Now, this is not following your question, but just for interesting sake, that was my first game in Neyland Stadium.
Man, that warms my heart, actually. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My last game in Neyland Stadium, we were playing UCLA, and we were ahead. And with about 3 minutes to go, an interception was thrown. They caught it and did a pick six on us and went ahead with like 3 minutes to go in the game. And on that drive of trying to catch up, it was 4th and long, and I caught my last pass in Neyland Stadium.
Wow.
And I thought, those two things, they're bigger than anything
Absolutely.
that ever happened,
Absolutely.
And Neyland Stadium was catching it wasn't the touchdowns I remember, it's the key passes.
The key plays.
Yeah, and that was key, keeping that drive alive. And we ended up scoring twice in those 3 minutes.
Wow.
And winning the game, yeah.
Man, those are, like when Derek Jeter had his last hit of his career was a game-winning hit. That's one of those type stories. That is cool, man. That is that's storybook stuff. That is storybook stuff. So we mentioned the statue before, and I'm going to quote one of my favorite movies called The Sandlot. And, heroes get remembered. Legends are never forgotten. So I called you an icon at the beginning of the show. And I asked you if that was okay, and you said, no. That's the greatest thing about the most amazing people is they don't know they're amazing. They're just them. You know what I mean? That's the greatest thing about amazing people. But Lester, they don't put statues of anybody other than legends. It just is because that's heroes get remembered. Legends are never forgotten. And that statue, you'll never be forgotten, man.
Wow. Yeah, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? So there ain't nobody asking to build a statue of Nick Hyder anytime soon. I can say that much. But maybe one day. Maybe one day. Dale will tell you that I love trophies. We do love trophies around here. Hey, I like statues even more, Dale. I just decided that. You know what I'm saying? So, so after to finish up on your playing career, And I asked you if this was correct, and I could tell you all my trophies. I might need to look in and change that, because a guy like you said, I remember some. I think that's right, but I've got here written down, and I may be missing some, okay? But you have been honored by the East Tennessee chapter of the National Football Foundation and Hall of Fame. All right. I've got here that you are also a member of the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools Sports Hall of Fame. You're a member of University of Tennessee's Athletics Hall of Fame, and you've earned the Maxwell House Sport Award. And in 1987, you were appointed to an alumni position on University of Tennessee's athletic board. And you've also received numerous state appointments, including the Tennessee Human Rights Commission by Governor Lamar Alexander. Mm-hmm. Right? So, dude, that's a pretty impressive paragraph that I just read.
Well, thank you.
That's a pretty impressive paragraph. So, what's it like? So here you are in the business world, and you're hanging out with just normal business guys, and then you get the call that you're going to be put into a Hall of Fame or something like that. Like, what's an experience like that feel like?
Well, you really didn't. You don't talk about it to anyone else. But you tell the kids, mm-hmm. and you kind of do that for them, mainly because you expect so much of them.
Oh,
you pass. I guess that's it's for that purpose only. You want them to be challenged in life, right, and try to make a difference. And we do the same thing. We passed it. We have one granddaughter, mm-hmm. that I had told her father. I said it's very important that she understands, because one of these days we've gotten to be old. She may be the only representative.
That's right.
we have from our family to talk about the statue or what's going on. You never know. Mm-hmm. So, it really, we know that we've built a life that's going to be around for a while. We just hope that we can do good things.
That's awesome.
And influence, young kids to make a difference.
That's right. That's right. Lester, is there anything else that maybe I missed, left out, or anything else that when you got the microphone that you'd like for people to know about yourself or about the situation, about culture today, or anything like that you would like to say? Because honestly, man, I can't think of a better person to ask.
No, you should tell the people how great your father is. And we played ball together, and he was a little guy.
That's right.
Played center and tough as nails.
Both of you guys look incredible for your age, like to be how old you're. Like my dad, but people are going to expect me to still be able to do what he does when I'm his age. Like, right. I told him, I'm like, you need to slow down just a little bit, because I don't know if I'm going to do that.
Right.
At 65, he was still bench pressing 300 pounds.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible from a physical standpoint. I mean, he can still get out there and keep up, and like, I'll need a break when we're doing something strenuous. Mm-hmm. I'll need a break before he will. It's crazy. He's a different breed. I'm sure he was sick growing up, but like, I only remember him being sick like a couple times, mm-hmm. in my entire life, mm-hmm. Where he was like, I don't think he was always self-employed, so he never really called out, but like, it's unbelievable. Both of my parents are absolutely amazing people, mm-hmm. and they bring so much of who I am today, from the toughness and the fight, because my daddy is not big, mm-hmm. But not only was he the first hider to graduate college, but he was the first one to play sports at the college level for, mm-hmm. the great Ken Dugan at Lipscomb University, mm-hmm. where they just mentioned him at their first pitch dinner the other night. He's mm-hmm. still there's a field named after him at Shelby Park for what he's done. He had a whole career in the music business, mm-hmm. that was fantastic. My mother was the ultimate homemaker. I had a wonderful childhood. Mm-hmm. Looking back at it, It was amazing. Of course, I took it for granted because it was just normal to me.
Right.
But looking back, my mother is at my house right now. She keeps our 9-month-old for us and helps keep she's helped raise both my kids. And both my kids are awesome, and they're awesome because of my wife and my mother. You know what I mean? I was extremely blessed to have amazing parents. I learned, like my mother is understanding who you are and what you stand for and how to stand up for that. I learned a lot of that from her too. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. You know what I mean? That was no, ma'am, no, sir. That was just how it was. There's a certain amount of respect that you give people that they've earned. And there's just a certain way that you treat people. And you can have it all if you want it, but you got to go about getting it the right way and treat people the right way in the path of doing it. And honestly, if you want to move up, you shouldn't have to take somebody out to move up. You should just be able to elevate the person that's above you up so you can, and they move up when you move up. Right. You know, so, but you were I believe that a lot of things that my dad accomplished in his life were because remember, in Antioch back then, especially growing up, he hadn't seen much. He saw as much through your experience as he probably did in anything else. And so that was, seriously, your name was mentioned over and over and over again. I knew you long before I ever even saw what you looked like. Just because you made that big of an impact on my family. Wow. So it was when I called him, I told you when I talked to you the first time, when I called him, and I'm always looking for amazing people to come on. So people call me all the time saying, you need to get this person and that person, and we love those. Keep those coming because, but it was, I just asked Dad, because Dad's hosted shows and knows a lot of great people. I just said, hey man, who would be good to bring on the show without even a hesitation? Lester McClain. Lester McClain. First one out of his mouth. Wow. Right. And one of his most prized photos is you were out at the ballpark a couple years ago for I don't know why, and you guys took a photo up in his office. Yeah. He's more proud of that photo than you have any idea.
Oh, how wonderful.
And it was so cool watching you guys talk because teammates are teammates forever.
Forever, that's right.
Forever. And you guys still cut up and act just like it. Like it gave me a glimpse of what the locker room looked like in 1966 and 67, you know what I'm saying? Back then. So it's such a cool thing. And I have teammates that I haven't seen in 15 years. And the moment we connect, you just go right back to where you left off.
Yeah. Did you see Remember the Titans?
Great movie.
Okay. Ask Mickey, what songs does he remember learning when I got there? Okay. And once he tells you, then you go back and you watch Remember the Titans. Okay. And see if you don't hear all the exact same music.
So they nailed it. They nailed it when they made that movie.
They nailed our experience.
Wow. How cool is that?
As far as, the music and the relationship, they singing Too Proud to Beg with the Temptations. That was
that was it. Dad, hey, if you listen to Dad's band and stuff, that was he had a Temptations medley. They played it all the time. The last time his band played in a reunion, and I sat in on the drums for a few. I was the drummer on the Temptations medley. Right? That's right. It was cool, man. So I don't even have to ask him because he's going to be tuning in. So he'll tell me as soon as he hears it. He tells me. That's the coolest thing is you can talk right to Pop, but just by looking in the camera right there, man.
Good.
That's right.
That. Yes.
Well, man, is there anything else that you'd like to leave with the folks out there? Because, like I say, it's I was talking to Dale earlier. Lester, I could have had you back 10 times, and we'd never ran out of stuff to talk about. Just your life experiences, whether it be in football or the cultural stuff or the business. Now in fatherhood and in spouse, and now in retirement. Which you don't look too retired. You look like you're still getting around pretty dang good, man.
Well, I like to get out and do something every day.
There you go.
I have that country boy mentality. I think that. I never want to farm, but I want to think like the farmer. He never has a time of the year that he doesn't need to do something.
That's right.
and to keep it all working.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to live like that in what I do every day, to have something, keep things working.
That's
because
right.
otherwise, if you let it sit, it'll kind of go stale on you.
Man, that's a perfect way to bring this sucker to a close. That was awesome. That was awesome. So Lester, if obviously if somebody was to just type your name in Google and wanted to read all about you, they could do a lot of things. Could they catch you at any University of Tennessee football games next football season? Do you go back and visit very often? Do you go back how many games do you go to a year, do you think?
Well, it's fewer each year now. Okay, and I didn't go to but one last year. That's unusual.
Okay.
And I think COVID and all those things have had a lot to do with that.
Absolutely.
But I'd like to at least attend, several, 3 or 4.
Excellent.
Every year. Particularly if I can get in one of the box seats. I had a friend that had the booth.
There you go.
You go to the booth and it's just a party the whole time, and I kind of like that.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So it's but I would probably do 3 or 4 at least every year, and I would like to attend a couple road games. I used to do all of that all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but I got where just didn't have the time to do it, or
Sure.
there's too much work that you had to do.
Absolutely.
But I do miss that part of life, and
Yeah.
I admire those who get a chance to do that.
That's right.
And live that kind of life. Yes.
Well, that's fantastic, man. So, if the folks wanted to keep up with anything that you got going on, right? Is there any? So, I know you have an email address, and but is there? Do you have any social media that you keep up on that anybody could stay with you or anything like that, or are you just kind of doing your thing?
Yeah, I just kind of do my thing.
Awesome.
Don't really do any social media.
Yeah.
I've never done any. I'm still an old guy, I'm in another league as far as the social media goes. Those are the things that my kids do. You do, and
Yes,
all
sir.
the same age.
Yes,
so,
sir.
So it's with me, I'm just totally old school with the social things.
Well, we're going to make sure that the production team, you'll have, we'll let you know when and where to catch this, because it's going to stream across all platforms.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be able to watch all this on YouTube. We'll make sure that the production team gets all that out, so that way your kids can enjoy it, and all your family and friends and all that kind of stuff when they want to do that, man. So, Lester, this has been an amazing experience for me today, selfishly, right? Because when Dad told me that he'd reached out to you and you said that you was going to do it, quite honestly, I was really excited, man. And he said, "Well, Lester's going to do it," and I was like, "Really?" It's like I almost didn't believe him. So that's really cool. But man, I mentioned in the beginning, I said a living icon. And that's just a fact, brother. I hope you are you okay with it, because it is what it is.
Well,
you know what I mean?
But thinking, and I do appreciate you inviting me.
Oh man,
that's very kind of you to do so.
Oh man, well we're there's a lot of stuff. Again, we could have gone on for hours and hours, and a lot of times we'll bring some folks back to go into things. The feedback that we get from the public about, like, man, I wish you'd have talked more about that or that or that. Well, it's no problem. Cool, keep those suggestions coming, because I'll bring them back. We'll talk about it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because that's why we do this, is for the folks that so they can get out of it what they need to get out of it. So, well, Lester McClain, the first African American football player at the University of Tennessee, more accolades and awards than I can count or read off, and then from all that to a very successful businessman and family life as well. You're the American dream, dude. You are it. You are it. Seriously. Mm-hmm. What else is it? You know what I mean? What else is it? Lester, I can't thank you so enough for hanging with me today, brother. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure, man.
Thank you.
So, well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when the next episode drops. You get those notifications, baby, right? So thanks again for tuning in. Keep those comments, keep those suggestions coming. We love them. And God bless you and yours.